Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary, wow, today was a really hard day.
Dear Diary, I find sometimes my life can be hard.
Dear Diary, it will pass and it will be okay.
Dear Diary, I feel like today is going to be...
Shh, the Indigo Diary.
Dear Diary, welcome world to the Indigo Diaries. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Natasha Hickling, and I'm the host of this not really brand new podcast anymore. I'm the host of this podcast, the Indigo Diaries. I welcome all you Indigos to the first series, The World Through Our Eyes, and this 5th episode, and a new very special guest. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. If this is your first time, then welcome. I really hope that you enjoyed today's first episode. But for today, our special guest is someone who, in the first moment I met her, I was like, wow, here's a girl that is very much like myself, but also very different. And we're also very uniquely different. But she was actually the first girl I'd ever met adult with hyperactivity. So hi, Annabel.
Hiya.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Annabel Louise is 31 and lives in England, the UK. She runs her own business called Bedford Tutor and Moonbow Coaching, which provides English and maths tuition for children aged 5 to 16 and has been doing this since 2012. Right, welcome.
Hiya.
So this is your episode. Where do you want to start? Let's start with when were you first diagnosed?
I was diagnosed on July 17th, 2020. So this year.
I love that you know the date.
It's my grandma's birthday, so I kind of remembered it. And I did do a history degree, so actually I'm relatively okay with remembering dates.
Wow, that's very rare.
Well, I'm not, I've had to train myself, to be fair.
So tell us about your diagnosis.
What do you want to know?
Anything that you want to tell
Because I will go off on a tangent with this. So do you want me to start right from the beginning?
Up to you. You
Okay.
tell us where you want to tell.
Well, it's difficult to actually explain the diagnosis without actually giving you some context. So I was born in 1989, and my mum actually tells me from the moment I was born, she thought I was different, which I'm not really sure how she knew that because she'd never had any other children. But she did work in childcare. So obviously she had some other sort of children that she could measure me against, I suppose. And I think parents naturally do that. They look at other children. And I mean, I do it as a tutor. I look at other children to sort of figure out if a child in my care is actually exhibiting symptoms of whether it be ADHD, dyslexia. And she said, as I grew up, it became obvious that my levels of activity were a lot higher than the levels of my peers. In terms of, I was just constantly moving from one thing to another with whirlwind speed and interest. I was a really happy child. I used to go up to random strangers and introduce myself. There's a funny story way back where I actually stole a piece of cake off someone's plate.
Oh, please tell us about this. Please tell us about this.
I've told most people about it, but whereas most sort of toddlers, young children are quite, I mean, I meet quite a lot of toddlers, obviously. I'm quite interested in working with children, and I naturally find myself talking to children when I'm out and about. And most toddlers have an element of shyness that stops them doing things like that, I find. But I never had that at all. I would go up to random people. I feel awful saying, I used to insult people quite a lot. I used to say to rather large people, I'd probably say something like, "Mummy, isn't she fat? Or isn't she fat?" And I would get my parents in so much trouble all the time. I was also constantly needing to be occupied. They couldn't, as I got older, it kind of didn't really change. Whereas most toddlers need that. As children get older, they don't need it as much.
No, they kind of grow out of it. I
was constantly needing to be occupied. It was sort of, they had to give me something to do all the time, or else I would be miserable. But yeah, I was a happy child. My mum actually went to a meeting when I was probably about 6 or 7 on ADHD.
Okay, tell us about that.
I think whether someone in the school had said something, whether she had just come to, but I think there was quite a number of people probably discussing me behind my back about ADHD. It came up very early on. My mum thought I'd got ADHD. She went to the meeting, came away, now she can't have it because she sleeps.
Really? Is that what they said? That's what they told your mum. So they convinced your mum that you couldn't have ADHD, even though, from what you've told us already, had quite a lot of symptoms of ADHD. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah. No, don't worry.
That's the first thing they said.
It was, I don't think it was even something they said. She came away from the meeting. It was all people with boys, first of all. I mean, we're talking the mid 1990s here. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, but I'm sure the situation was similar when you were younger. Yeah. That's why it took you so long to get a diagnosis. And we've got all of these boys, obviously, with these parents who were disruptive, probably doing things like walking out classrooms, moving around when they're not supposed to. And I was pretty good in school. I had a reputation in school, but I was well behaved when I was actually learning about something I wanted to learn about.
Do you think that's because you liked it? Is it because
I loved school?
It? Yeah,
when I say I loved school, that is, I loved learning. And I always tell people that I didn't really love school, but I loved what we did in school. I loved the learning. I loved the fact that we were given something to do. We were told what to do, when it needed to be done by. It was this timetabled approach that I knew what I was doing all the time. I didn't have to go off and do something for 3 hours without any direction.
So there was structure. So then
the structure is what helped me. But I had a reputation in the playground as being really tomboyish, as in like really tomboyish. I used to push people over. I wouldn't get into fights, but I wasn't I say typical girl. What is a typical girl?
Yeah, what is a typical girl? We're not there.
I know everybody has in their head what a typical girl is like. However much we try to get rid of gender stereotypes, it's always there. And I was renowned for being the one who tore around the playground after school and was just, I didn't have friendship groups. I used to just mingle with everyone. I'd move with such rapidity from one group to another. Everyone was like, she's like a whirlwind. She's always moving around. And yet you could tame me if you made me learn. Learning is the way you tame my brain. I have to go back to that whirlwind. That's a really big thing for me because that's what my family used to call me as a child. I was always called a whirlwind.
Yeah, me too. How do you think that reputation?
I don't mind. It never bothered me. I was always happy when I was in, because we had 3-tier system where I live. So it's not anymore. It's changed because it didn't really work. We had lower school, which was from 4 to 9. Middle school from 9 to 13, and then upper school from 13 to 18. And in lower school, I was a happy-go-lucky child, never had any problems. I did used to stim a lot. I used to bite my nails. I used to bite my hair. I used to bite through my jumpers. And I was always renowned for being very loud, very in your face. I was always told the in your face child. She's got no fear. She's always wanted to be centre stage. And I was very theatrical, as in if you put me on a stage, I would find my way to the front of the stage. I've got pictures that prove it. I've got all the pictures of me with my mouth open singing. My mum said you had to sing the loudest or you just wouldn't be happy.
I believe you. I think we'll believe you. Don't worry. So what happened next when you... Oh, don't say sorry.
So I moved to middle school, and this is when all the trouble started.
Okay.
Again, I wasn't naughty. This is the problem. So I got to middle school, and from the moment I got to middle school, my self-esteem dropped exponentially. It just fell. My confidence fell. I was still making the grades because I'm lucky. I'm naturally quite intelligent in terms of academic. I don't have dyslexia. I don't have any comorbidities. Well, I didn't until then. I did have problems with left and right from the word go, telling the time from the word go.
Yeah.
No one could work out why someone who was so good at their times tables couldn't tell the time. But I did learn eventually. So I got to middle school and I started to get I feel different. I'd never felt different before.
Okay.
There were girls there by the age of 9 or 10. Most girls are starting to explore. I say not exploring boys. It's a bit early for that, but they're starting to explore like puberty. Fashion.
Yeah.
And puberty starts to hit. I mean, I started to sort of go through that when I was in year 6.
Pressure,
so when I was about 10, 11. And as soon as I hit puberty, I developed a phobia.
Okay.
I got a emetophobia, which is a fear of being sick. I still live with it to this day, though it doesn't affect my life like it used to.
Oh, that's good.
So I developed this awful coping mechanism, which was just refusing to go to school. And I did go to school because my mum dragged me there, but I had upset stomachs every single day. I was out of lessons every single day because I felt unwell. I had the most severe anxiety I've ever had in my life. My parents took me to psychotherapists. They got me on anti-anxiety. It wasn't medication as much as sort of a herbal supplement they tried with me. Nothing really worked until I got to year 7, when I got a teacher who became my best friend, and he got me out of that.
That's strange that a teacher, you know, I know they're very influential, but they are more than people think.
Yeah. My business is actually, the logo is because of that teacher. He was called Mr. Swallow, and that is why the logo is a swallow.
Tell us about Mr. Swallow.
Mr. Swallow he was a science teacher. Okay. And he was a bearded guy. He looked kind of like a father figure. I mean, now he'd be a grandfather figure, but back then he was like he was my dad's kind of age, probably a little bit older. And he had a soft voice, beautiful handwriting. And I just remember him taking me under his wing, literally, Mr. Swallow. I just realised the pun in that.
A wing and a swallow. So it took me a minute.
And he just looked after me. And I mean, I'd spent most of year 6 in the student support centre, suffering from crippling anxiety with no friends. Everyone called me alien. And by year 7, I'd developed confidence.
Okay.
I got really good at science, but I didn't just get good at science. I became obsessed with science because I became obsessed with Mr. Swallow. And I hyper-focused on science, big time. I started to do a lot better in terms of grades, and it continued through year 7, year 8. It was fine. I was always the odd one out, though. I never felt like anyone else. I felt like I'd been dropped here, sort of like a spaceship had flown past one day and somehow dropped me on the earth.
Do you think that because of the people that used to call you alien, that it put that that kind of thought into your mind?
Yeah, that's when I knew that I was different. But then I moved to upper school, and obviously my brain was maturing. And year 9, I had the phobia come back again, because I moved again, so the anxiety comes back. But no one could ever work out the anxiety because I never came across as an anxious person. I came across as an impulsive, hyperactive, excitable, emotional, very easily distracted if I wasn't interested. Like maths lessons, I didn't learn anything in maths. Let's face it, I never learned anything in ICT. I just used to sit there in maths, and I thought, right, what am I going to do today? Let's talk about the latest pop song. And that's all I talked about with my next door neighbour. I think her grade fell as well. No one knew, though, because I was really clever at being distracted. And I've actually done a lot of looking back and thinking, God, I was clever when I was distracted. I really didn't make it obvious. I was really good at covering it up.
We're very good, aren't we, at hiding it when we get to that age, but we're never aware of it because obviously we didn't know that we had ADHD.
Precisely. And I just could not deal with social situations very well. I started to think I must be autistic. And then that crept into my mind. So I started hyper-focusing on that. I've got to be autistic. Someone said something once. One child said something, oh, I think you're on the spectrum because you're so weird. And I mean, people on the spectrum are not weird. We're not weird. We're just different.
No, we're not at all.
And so I started hyper-focusing on that, didn't I? And I started researching it. And I thought, asking everyone, am I autistic? Do you think I'm autistic? And I started panicking. And then I think I started acting as though I was.
Yeah, because you put it in your head, that set gets behind, and you're like, well, I must be like this, so I have to do this. No, I understand.
I must. And I just started to sort of think, well, if I am, I am. And I've always had a way of attracting people who need help.
Okay.
So I remember we used to have a school farm, and I used to spend all of my break times, lunch times up at the school farm. And I was with a group of people up there. Everyone who didn't fit in used to go to the farm. It was quite a well-known thing. And all the other sixth formers hung out in the sixth form centre, but I hung out up the farm with these children. And I love animals. I've always been a massive fan of animals. I think it's definitely an ADHD thing.
It definitely is, yeah.
And we would hang out with the animals, and all of these people had some kind of learning problem. They either had a learning disability, they had ADHD, dyslexia, something that made them feel as though they were somehow not fitting in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know back then, but I remember performing up there to them. I remember one day I did this stupid dance thing, and I ended up not able to walk properly for about 3 weeks. But afterwards I could do the splits. And I remember that
random
vividly.
fact there. That random fact you can do the splits.
I can do the splits. I'm very flexible. I couldn't do the splits up until this point though, which was quite amusing. But yeah, I can now do the splits, and it's my party trick. And yeah, I mean, when I go to a party, I can't cover up the ADHD. I do the splits. I always do the splits on tables often.
I've never been able to do that. Okay, so you went up to this farm. Do you feel like, because these children, it's strange, isn't it? Because you don't know, but it's almost like you're drawn to situations and other children that are like you, but you just don't know it.
Definitely. And it's startling now. It's like a connecting the dots. It's like one of those pictures you do as a child. But even when I was about 6 or 7, there was one girl in the school who had cerebral palsy and learning disabilities, and she was my best friend. And my mum, they all used to love it. They said, "Oh, Annabel, she's so kind. She always helps people out." In another breath, "Annabel, she's so hyperactive. She's so impulsive. Why is she always talking, or this or that?" So it's always been the case. I've always wanted to help people.
And do you know why that is? Compassion. We have compassion.
We do. Oh, we do. We have compassion. So I left school and got a job, a temporary job, because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
So did you do GCSEs and A levels?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I've skipped a step.
No, I did
GCSEs. I did A levels. I did well in my GCSEs. I actually managed to get 6 A's.
Wow.
I am academic. I've always been academic. Didn't do very well in maths. I hope all my customers are not listening. It's all my maths all the ones who have maths with me, and now I'm going to lose half my clients.
It's okay, we won't ask what grade you got, so don't worry. Keep going.
I did get a C. I got a C.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
But I should have got much better with my IQ. I know what my IQ is, and it doesn't add up. That's another pun.
And the IQ doesn't add up, maths, very boom. You literally need a drum. I know you're just getting these one-liners, aren't you?
Just doesn't add up.
Okay, so what happened?
I'm going to subtract a little bit from the next bit because it's going to go on for ages. You're going to have to multiply the time by 2 to get me fitted in. Sorry.
Look at her. She's that's it now. It's just jokes.
That's it. That's all I'm focused on now. There's a hyper focus crept in. So A levels was when I started to really find school tough. Okay. I did really well in psychology. I got an A in psychology because I was obsessed with it. Absolutely obsessed.
And I can see why, because it's basically helps understand you, but you just didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't do a psychology degree because I would not have been able to cope with the workload. Yeah. I don't know how I coped with the workload of a history degree, but there you go, I did it. I did biology because I loved science, got an A in science, thought, oh, this is a natural follow-on. Hated it. It was horrendous. It suddenly jumped from being sciencey, sort of interesting, to being very in-depth, and I just lost interest completely. My focus went, the grades just went down to a D or an E. I really struggled with that. English, I got a B overall, but I really struggled with the bits I should have done well at, like the creative writing. I went off on a tangent.
Do you think it's because you were bummed down with everything else and you were struggling with everything else that your creative, part?
I found something more exciting when I was in sixth form. I formed my first business. I became a children's entertainer.
Okay, tell us about this. I want to know.
I needed an outlet for my craziness, so I set up a children's entertaining business and became a clown.
Oh, that is brilliant.
I thought one day I was sitting in the library at school. as you do. And I was like, I want to set up a business. I'm going to set one up right now. I've got half an hour left to lunch. I'm going to set up a business. So I set up a business. And I'm one of those people that if I really want to do something, nothing gets in the way. So I'm like, right, I'm going to become a clown. People have said I act like an alien. I might as well become a clown. Quite close. So I became a clown, and I used to do face painting, balloon modelling, magic shows. And I think if you want an ADHD friendly job, you got one there.
Go and be a clown.
Yeah. I did that until I was 28. Had to give it up because the tuition became really, really busy. But to be honest, the tuition's just as much performing as the children's entertaining. And it became very difficult. Parents used to stay at all the parties, and I used to sometimes have meltdowns because I got really overwhelmed with things. Had a couple of meltdowns at parties because some of the parents were really rude to me about their children's behaviour. And so I gave it up. I didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Okay.
So I gave that up, but I have fond memories of it. It was great fun. It was hilarious.
Do you think that helped you with your A-levels? Like get all that out? Yeah.
I look back and I always had a coping mechanism that included something with huge amounts of energy. I don't know. I've naturally, I was either doing, when I was in younger, my mum had me swimming lessons, gymnastics, horse riding, ballet, dance, other kinds of dancing. What else did I do? I was always outside.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you the jack of all trades?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not master of anything.
No, me neither.
I can't get to the master of anything. The problem is I get to almost the level. I'm like almost there. Oh, I'm bored now. I want to do something else.
Yeah, and then you're like, Mum, please, can I swap?
Yeah, always. My mum said, gosh, you always have like so many hobbies. You never stick at my dad. It's like, Annabel, you never stick at anything. Oh, it used to wind me up.
I can relate
and
to
it's
that.
still the same. I've got so much. I've got like 7 half-completed novels on my computer. I did write 2 books. If I've got someone giving me a deadline, I'm fine. But if I've got no outside person telling me to do it, I used to think I had lots of internal motivation. But when I look at other people, I really don't. I have to really want to do it. And if I really want to do it, there's no problem with my motivation. But I want constant variation and novelty. That is the way my brain works. It's interest driven.
The variable stimulation, eh? So what happened after school then? Yeah, vast, yes. If
after school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought about becoming a teacher. Then I got bored of that idea. So I thought I'll do something else. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I got a temporary job while I decided. So the temporary job was in this photocopying department of a school, very local school.
Okay.
And I was expected to photocopy teachers' work for their lessons. I was also expected to make sure that things were bound up and just things were collated, ready for the sessions.
Okay.
And it went well for a couple of weeks, but I just found it so boring. It was mind-numbing. And I used to get in quite a lot of rows with the teachers.
It's an office job, isn't it?
Yeah, one particular day, the photocopier wouldn't work. And I'd got about 4 teachers screaming at me to get their work photocopied. And I'm like, I can't do it. The photocopy is broken. And I remember, rather than asking for help, I got annoyed with the photocopier and broke off a piece of the photocopier. And I remember having this piece of plastic in my hand. And I was like, oh dear. And I instantly obviously got the sack. But I didn't get the sack before I broke down in the corridor in tears. And then I was pounding the tables going, why? And I was thinking, why am I reacting like this? This was when I was about 18, 19.
Yeah.
Then I got another job in a prison. The admin department of a prison.
So you've gone from a school and a photocopier breaking things to a prison. Right.
It's not a logical step, really. What do you reckon?
Enlighten us with this stuff.
Well, it was another temp job. My mum did not like the idea of her 18, 9, I was probably 19, I was 19 by this time. 19-year-old daughter working in a prison, but there we go. The rest is history. So I worked in the prison. What I had to do was work out whether prisoners were able to have early release.
Okay.
So certain prisoners would not be able to have early release because they'd done something too awful to get early release. So people like rapists, paedophiles, all those people you wouldn't expect would not get early release. And oh God, I used to mess it up so often because I got bored, didn't I? And I start thinking, have I got dementia or something? Why am I not able to keep doing this? Other people in this office are doing this job and all I want to do is sit on Facebook because I'm so bored. They had to take me to the toilets. And again, lasted a couple of weeks, and then I had another meltdown
at the job.
Got the sack again. So I'm thinking, I can't work for anyone. I then get it into my head: why is someone who's so good at school, always got goodish reports? There was always a few pointers on those as well. Is now suddenly an epic failure at work. I can't work for anyone. What's wrong with me? So I got a couple of cleaning jobs and I thought I'm going to do a degree. Again, an impulsive decision. Got these couple of cleaning jobs. I actually did them for about 6 years.
Oh,
because I was in an office for 2 hours at a time. It's no more. I hated them. They were lovely people, but I hated the repetitiveness. But I did them because it was money. I did it in my own time. No one was there. My mum used to sometimes help me if I felt a bit overwhelmed with work, and that happened quite a lot. And so that worked, and I impulsively chose a history degree. I love history, but I'll be absolutely honest, I did struggle with the amount of reading, and the exams crippled me. I did really well in the essays because I'm good at essay writing. Okay. I'm good at anything argumentative. That's what I did history. If I've got a deadline, you can do. I used to plan these essays really well. I used to work through them. I tended to do them all at once and then check them.
Okay.
I like doing things all at once. I really struggle if I have to stop something and then restart it.
Yeah, it's all or nothing. All or nothing.
It is all or nothing. And I've looking back, it's been the whole of my life. My mum used to say to me, "You're all or nothing." All these pointers from parents and friends. So that was my history degree. Did it. I didn't do as well as I wanted to do. And I ended up doing really badly in the 3-hour exams. I had about 3-hour exams, and I started to again think there was something wrong with my memory because I remembered all the facts, but I couldn't arrange them in order.
What makes me a bit sad though, hearing this story and the work story, as you said, what's wrong with me? Why is everybody else doing stuff?
Yeah, I know.
Now, what's wrong with my memory? What's wrong with that? A 3-hour exam, I think even for anybody that is like, but you because there's self-esteem and always seeing your difference. It's like that you instantly go to what's wrong with me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it never bothered me that much because at the end of the history degree, I remember the day. It was late September, early October. I sat in front of my computer in my parents' office, and I thought, I'm going to set up a business. Another one of those. No planning, no experience. I'm going to set up a private tuition business. So I set one up that afternoon. And by the end of the evening, I'd got a web address, I'd got the price lists, I'd got the whole caboodle ready to start a business. And my mum was like, "Oh gosh, you're not set up another business. What are you going to do? Where are you going to do it? Where are you going to tutor these people?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to do them at this house." My mum's like, "Well, we don't want random people coming to the house." I'm like, "Oh, you'll be okay. They'll be nice people." So she's all right with it. She was okay. You've got to do some kind of job. You're probably not going to ever get a job at this rate. I mean, you were a success in school. You got good grades, and now you can't get a job. So it took off. Within about 3 months, I'd got about 20 clients, and I found the thing that I was really good at. Instantly, I was really good at it, and I don't know why I'm really good at it, but children like me. I think they probably think I'm very much like them in personality.
It really makes a difference, doesn't it? I just want to go, before we go to your business, just before the break, I just want to say that about your parents, like you always you say like, oh, I said this to my mum and she was not sure, but she was like, okay. And then my mum went to when we were younger. Tell us about your parents, because it seems to be a recurring thing about them.
Yeah, my parents, they're great. I mean, they think I'm crazy. My dad, we have done quite a lot of backtracking to his childhood and talked to the family. And well, he put it this way, there's quite a good pointer about his childhood. He ran off from the family when he was about 5, ended up drowning in Bedford River, which is my local town. And if there hadn't have been an off-duty sailor passing by, he would have ceased to exist at 5 years old, and I would never have happened. So yeah, 5 years old, he was drowning in Bedford River. That says a lot about his personality at that age. He was out of control as a child. He was an out of control child. The family talk about him and his behavior quite a lot and what he was like. He was, the only time he was happy was when he was doing his own thing. And looking back, it's clear my dad, I think he partly outgrew it. Okay, he's more inattentive now than anything. Poor thing zones out all the time. But he as a child obviously had hyperactive impulsive ADHD. Yeah. It's clear from his behaviour that he had a lot of issues. He refused school like I did. He had the same patterns. I didn't actually know this until I reached adulthood. All I saw was quite a stable, loving guy who was crazy at parties and didn't listen to me when I tried to tell him something. I never asked my dad for anything because he's not going to listen to me. So my parents, they let me run free. They were very disciplinarian. I used to get a little smack rather than get told something negative about my behaviour. Now that, I think, has helped me develop into quite a confident human. I am not a person, I wouldn't smack my children because I don't like that. But for me, it worked because they never bullied me verbally. They never said, oh, you're stupid, you're to this, you're to that. It was just a smack.
That's rare.
And then that was it. My mum said the only way that I could be controlled was with a smack, because I was that out of control.
I don't mean the smacking thing, but the way that they didn't verbally.
No, I never remember being insulted by my parents. They do insult me now. We insult one another. I mean, we're grown adults. We bicker. Yeah. And they started bickering with me a lot more as I became a teenager. But when I was a small child, in those formative years, if I was naughty, it was always a little smack. It wasn't a bad smack. It was, my parents going to get locked up now.
No, but that's what it was like back then, wasn't it? I was the same.
It was a smack.
That's what it was like, yeah.
And that does, in my opinion, as a child with ADHD, that did a lot less harm than if they'd have been like, oh, you're stupid, you need to try harder. I just used to get a smack, and I was like, well, I better stop that now, hadn't I? I was going to get another one. Yeah, and I often did get another one.
Words can hurt a lot more sometimes.
Words can hurt a lot more.
We're going to come back to this. I want to know how... We've talked about your parents, and I want to know how that's impacted you today. And then we'll go into Bedford tutoring. So we're going to go and grab a drink and put my aircon on for 2 minutes, and we'll be back soon. If you would like any information on Indigo's support group, check out the website below for our link to our Facebook page, or email at indigo.adhd2020@gmail.com. If you would like to offer any comments or feedback, or if you are interested in the world hearing your story, then please reach out, either through the group or through our email. As said before, have a good week. Check in again later, Indigos. Shh, the Indigo Diaries. Okay, and welcome back to the Indigo Diaries. We've had a bit of some pet issues and got on a wagon wheel. Well, Annabelle actually didn't have any wagon wheels, so she's got something else. And
we're some VIBs.
Oh, you see. Oh,
very important biscuits.
I miss Britain. Right, so let's get back started. So before the break, we were talking to Annabel from the UK, and you should already know this, so rewind if you don't know this. And we were discussing how her parents have made a huge impact. So, Annabel, how do you think the way your parents were and the way they are have kind of impacted your adult life?
They were always very clear on discipline without being unfair.
Okay.
They brought me up in the country, which I think for a child with ADHD is brilliant. I mean, not every child is lucky enough to have that upbringing. I had a massive garden. My dad built me a hurdle when I was 9 because I jumped a lot. I was very good at jumping. I was the best in the school at long jumping at one point. I was a very fast sprinter. But typical to ADHD brains, I was more of a sprinter than a marathoner. So it was literally
really?
it was always me sprinting around. Yeah, it was always me sprinting backwards and forwards around the garden. I was friends with the girl next door. She was very similar personality to me, a lot younger, 4 years. So I always found being with younger people a lot easier than being with people my own age.
Yeah.
Also, I found it easier being with older people than me. It was just my own age group I really struggled to interact with. I had a very idyllic childhood, no trauma whatsoever.
Wow.
I never faced any deaths in the family. My parents were together and happy. They used to bicker, but there was never any tension like a lot of children go through. I've got nothing else I can blame the symptoms on, put it that way. But they were very supportive of the business. They even helped me buy a house when I was 26. They helped me buy this premises for the business, and it's our property. It's my parents, and we own it all together as a family. But we bought this property. It means I own my own classroom. I don't have to rent it. I own it. And that is a big thing for the business.
That's a huge thing.
They're massively supportive. My mum does my washing. She does little chores for me. My dad does all my DIY and things like that. So they're very, very supportive parents. I couldn't ask for anything more supportive, and I think that's why I cope without medication.
I think that is very rare. And I say that after speaking to people in Indigo, and I'm not saying about, mine or anything, but it's very rare to find both parents that really, really embrace you and empower you rather than the other way.
Yeah, I mean, they do moan about me a lot. They moan to my face, oh, you should do this, you should try this, you should really have a go at this. But they were very, very supportive. And I think partly because I'm an only child.
Okay.
And I always tried my best at school. And I think that goes a long way with parenting, because kind of when you're a child, you're measured by how you do at school.
Yes.
However much you don't want to be. It's like as an adult, you're measured by how well you do at work. As a child, you're sort of measured by how well you do at school. But I think if I hadn't have had that support network, I mean, my mum always made sure I had everything ready. She always made sure I did my homework. And she structured my life. My mum structured, my dad never structured my life because I don't think he's got that ability like my mum has at all. But she structured this life for me that was it was empathic. She was very much always helping me to stay organized, because I was chaotic as a small child. I was messy, I was chaotic, I was all over the place, very intelligent, but my thoughts were all over the place, asking loads of questions. And but my mum saw obviously that I'd got this academic side to me, and she pushed it, but without doing it in a way that was undermining. She was really sort of, just do your best. We know you'll do your best. And you know what? If you can have a parent like that, or parents like that, I mean, I moan about them all the time.
Yeah, but
they moan about me, but we never go to bed annoyed with one another. My mum, if I have a panic attack, my mum will always come down and help me. In fact, one of my biggest fears is losing either of them. And I nearly did lose my dad this year because he had an infection that developed into an awful stomach thing at the same time as the death rates for COVID were the highest peak of them. And he nearly died in intensive care. But honestly, it's going to take a lot to kill that guy, because he is tough. The whole family, we're all really tough people. We are very tough people. We go through a lot. I mean, my business, I had to take I thrive in crises. I don't like to admit it, but I do. I had to take the business online in 2 hours. I had to take 80 customers from visiting to online in 2 hours. And I thrived on it. It nearly broke me down the day I did it, but it's made me stronger.
Yeah, it does. Whatever knocks you down builds you up, doesn't it? So tell us about Bedford tutoring.
Bedford Tutor, 2012, I set up Bedford Tutor. And Bedford Tutor is the reason I now have a diagnosis of combined ADHD.
Wow.
Bedford Tutor, I set it up because I was impulsive one afternoon and thought, why not? And that kind of tends to be, I also have anxiety. I don't have enough anxiety to get diagnosed with anxiety, but I know I'm anxious. I have panic attacks about sometimes. I've had more recently because of the situation, but they're getting better again now. And anything that I set up is kind of a battle between anxiety and ADHD. The ADHD is like, do it now and do it well, and focus in on this one thing and let everything else go. And then the anxiety comes along. It's like, oh my gosh, you're not going to be very good at this. You haven't done it before. But the ADHD usually wins, and I want it to win because it's the bit of me I like. I like that a lot more than I like the anxiety. So I set up this business, and it was always my dream right from the beginning to have my own classroom or tuition room, because we never have a class in it.
Yeah.
So I started to tutor down at the village hall, which is only half a mile from where I'm sitting. And I had like there's a little back room there that serves as a bar when they open the hall up. And I set up in there, bought loads of resources, used to take them down with my mum's help. And we would tutor in this room. It was only a small room, probably size of the average small lounge, but it was enough to have a couple of kids in there at once. It became very popular very quickly. I think more than anything, it was because of the hands-on style that we were using.
The tactile, yeah.
And that, I think, really made a big difference. And as it got bigger, I started to get more and more I'd be overwhelmed. I was underwhelmed. I was just not stimulated enough by the fact that I didn't have my own place.
Yeah.
I had to clear it away at certain times. And I've got this room all set up like a little tuition room, and then I had to clear it all up. And my dad and mum were like, well, we don't want you to rent anywhere, because we know you're going to do this for the rest of your life, because you're good at it, and it's the only thing you've ever stuck at for more than a year. So we saw that the chapel in the village was coming up for sale, the old Baptist chapel.
Okay.
And my dad said, oh, wouldn't that be great if you could have that room that you used to go to Sunday school in? Because everyone in the village used to go to Sunday school. It was great. It was brilliant, this Sunday school. Everyone used to go to Sunday school in the 90s. And we used to go to Sunday school in this room and sing songs and colour in. I used to climb everything. Oh, God. And it came up for sale, and we bought it. And they wanted us to have it, the people who were selling it, because they didn't want it demolished, and they didn't want it turned into a nightclub. We said it's going to be an educational venue for children. I'm not religious, I am spiritual. I said to them, I'm a spiritual person. I understand that it's a religious building. It will always be kept in the village. It's not going to be demolished, because it's Victorian, beautiful Victorian building. It's huge. It's absolutely gigantic. So set it up, and it all went through. This was the 5th of August 2016. There's only a few dates I remember from my life. The day I got diagnosed, the day I got my house, my birthday, a few other dates, Christmas, all of those things you'd expect. And it was, then we got it just at the start of the summer holidays. So my dad converted this old Sunday school room into a hands-on classroom.
Wow. And
unbeknown to me, I was doing everything that an ADHD brain would do. I was buying hands-on resources, painting everything in bright colours. I'm not saying everyone with ADHD is like this, but I know it's quite common.
Yes,
I was making the whole place ADHD friendly without even knowing. So we started to get busier and busier, and more people wanted to visit. And about October last year, a girl, I'm not going to say her name because her mum might not want me to use her name.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to call her Heidi, because
Heidi.
the character in the book is actually based on Heidi. So this girl, who I'm calling Heidi, came to the venue. And from the moment my mum saw this girl, she's like, gosh, she's like you, isn't she? Gracious me. She came for her induction, and the mum said she's got combined ADHD and we think dyslexia. She has actually now been diagnosed with dyslexia. And this girl, I just got this instant bond with this girl. This point there, she became absolutely crazy about the lessons. I've still got her, loved teaching her. And something inside me kept bringing something with you, Annabel. There's a reason why you are so good with this girl. I mean, I'm good with all the kids, don't get me wrong, but specifically good with this girl. What is it about her? She's got ADHD. Is it that? Is it that her mum is a similar kind of parent than my mum was? What is it? So lockdown happens and we have to take it all online. And yes, it's very traumatic. And I almost had a breakdown because I couldn't do the one part of the business that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I got over it. I got through it. I did some coaching, which didn't really work out in the end, but it did help for the time that I did it. And I remember being with my best friend called Charlotte. She won't mind me saying her name. Okay. Charlotte is an OT, an occupational therapist. And this particular day, we went for a walk, and I was my normal self, picking grass, picking up leaves, stopping to look at leaves. I look at leaves a lot. I love leaves. I don't know what it is. ADHD as in leaves. There's a thing online about this.
Nature.
Yeah.
Makes us feel
Touching. I touch everything. Touch all the bark. Pick up stones. This has been going on since I was I used to put them in my mouth. Now I just pick them up. I used to collect stones.
I'm glad that you don't put them in your mouth. I'm glad that you don't put them in your mouth.
I don't anymore. I used to. Up until about 6, I used to put them in my mouth. So I was talking to her. I said, Charlotte, I said, I think there's something wrong with me. I remember saying, I said, I can't work it out. She said, well, we know what's wrong with you. I said, well, she said, you've got ADHD, haven't you? I said, well, I said, I have been wondering, because I've done a few of the online quizzes and they all come back as that I have. I said, but I don't think I can, Charlotte, because I did well at school and I wasn't that bad. I mean, they all knew me as the crazy one, the one who dressed up as an alien for Mufti Day, because I think they called me alien, dress up as an alien. I mean, why not? Who can play at that game? That was the way I got through school. So she said, Annabel, you've got it. It's just so obvious. She actually works with people with ADHD.
Okay.
So I kind of believed her. She's like, from the moment I saw you, I knew you'd got it. I was like, oh God, is that how everyone views me? It's like,
how hearing that, how did that kind of...
I was just like, I probably have. She said, you've also got sensory issues as well. I was like, have I really? She's like, you pick up everything. She's like, you move around all the time, even little movements. You don't, it's like in the classroom, thinking back, I was always moving. I was always sucking something. Or I was always fiddling with really small movements like I am now. I've got a little rock.
Yeah, it's a fine motor, isn't it?
But it's small movements. I don't have to be moving my whole body, but just a small movement. She said, I've never, ever seen you sit still, completely still. And so I thought, yeah. So then what I do is I get a bit hyper-focused on this. And I think I'm going to ask everyone who knew me when I was younger what I was like. And my swimming teacher, I contacted her and she said, well, you were always different. We knew you were different. You came in every week excitable with some random fact that you had to tell the entire class. And she said you had 2 moods. You were either obsessively focused to the point where it was just mad, or you were on another planet. Yep. She said there was no, like, you were
middle ground.
Middle ground. She said you were great swimmer. She said, because you had so much energy, but you were different from all the other kids, definitely. So, okay, I've got someone else thinks. I said, well, do you think I've got ADHD? She said, well, that would explain it, yeah. Then I asked a GP friend of mine, who's not my GP, but I asked her, and I said, look, I've got these school reports. Can you have a look through them and just see what you think? I didn't put the ADHD word in her head.
That's good.
So she said, well, if I was looking at those as a GP, if someone had brought them to me, she said, I would have said, get an ADHD diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
She said, even though you did well, there were pointers. I mean, one of the school reports says Annabel is a memorable character. There's never a dull moment when she's in the class. Annabel needs to listen to instructions because she's not understanding what she's doing. Annabel, I never used to be forgetful, but I know why that is. It's because my mum never let me.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you had those external things.
But my mum couldn't control my impulsivity in class. My mum could control me not forgetting my homework, but my mum couldn't control that. And the stuff my mum couldn't control is the stuff that was on the reports. And so she said, look, it's likely you've got it. She said when I met you the first time, I thought, well, that girl's got ADHD because she's moving around a lot and she's so enthusiastic, she's so excitable. There's nothing else could explain it, because it's just ingrained in my personality, and I've been like this from all my life. It's not something that suddenly happened. It's always been the case. It goes up and down depending on what's going on around me, but I've always been the same. So then I asked a few family friends who knew me when I was younger, and they all said I was a lovely kid, but I was just all over the place, just running everywhere. I was loud, very talkative, and I would flip from one thing to another continuously. It was just like I'll be talking about outer space, and then suddenly I'd be talking about strawberries. Somehow or another.
Our minds can do that sometimes. And
I can just do it. I mean, I don't do it all the time. I'm able to control it to some degree, but I have to physically think to control it like I am now. I mean, now I want to think about strawberries, and I genuinely am back in the fields when I was 6 picking strawberries.
Yeah, but you're more older and self-aware now and things. But
I am. But apparently that was me as a child. But the teachers loved it because I was always asking questions.
Yes.
And I was also in difficult classes. I was in really naughty classes. So my behaviour was never as bad as some of the kids. So I think I just got lost. I got lost because girls get lost. We zone out, but no one knows we're zoning out. No. And if we're clever enough, it doesn't affect our grades.
No, we're quite good at
and that's the problem. So so that was, I've totally forgotten what I was saying.
I'm going to ask you a question.
I honestly have. I was thinking about strawberries.
Oh, well, it's one of those things. Strawberries, everybody. Now everybody else is thinking of strawberries.
I really want strawberries, and it's not even the season for them.
I
like British ones.
Oh, strawberry picket. Anyway, right. No more strawberries.
I'm on ice cream now, so it's fine.
God. How did it? Oh, now you've got me thinking about ice cream. How did you feel like hearing all these things from other people?
I just thought, well, I'm gonna get diagnosed if I have got this thing. I know one of my best mates from school had it, and he was the funniest kid in the class. He's actually now on the meetings, and I can say his name because he wants fame. Dan was a good friend of mine in school, and I always remember an embarrassing moment. I had a slight crush. I really hope his wife doesn't listen to this podcast, because it's luckily that was a school thing that no longer applies, luckily. But I had this schoolgirl crush on him because he was funny and cute. Well, to me he was. So I remember standing up at our leavers assembly in year 11, standing up in the hall in front of everyone saying to the singer, I want you to dedicate this to Dan because he's going into the army and I think he's lovely, or something like that. And that was me. That was teenage me. I was so clunky socially. I remember him saying to me when he first, because we talk again now, which is good.
Oh, good. And
I remember him saying to me, like, you just said it. If you wanted to say it, you just said it. No one would stop you. How did no one guess what it was going on here? So yeah, I booked up with Psychiatry UK. That's who I was recommended to go to. I thought, I want this quick. I want this done quickly. And the reviews from them were superb. I think they've got like 100% 5-star reviews actually.
Wow.
And anyone on all the ADHD groups was like, if you want it done quickly in the middle of a pandemic, you're not going to be able to visit anyone. You're going to have to do it online. So I'm thinking, is that really the best way? But then I read quite a lot of reviews that said the psychiatrists who work for them are so specialised that they can pick it up often within 5 minutes of talking to someone.
Wow, that's very rare.
Which I think I kind of can understand that, because I can now pick up ADHD within 5 minutes of talking to someone.
Yeah,
I could probably qualify as a psychiatric assessor for ADHD. So I chose the person who I thought was the most qualified, someone who works for, it's not Addis, but it's an ADHD, a very big ADHD organisation.
Okay.
I can't tell you what it's called offhand. That is the ADHD, because I can't remember. And I did my mum did all the reports, my dad had a look at them, I filled things out thinking, oh gosh, I'll tick off most of these. And yeah, I got diagnosed on the 17th of July, and I'm still getting over it. I'll say I'm still getting over it. I'm not going to be able to get over it. It hasn't upset me. Mm-hmm. It hasn't caused me stress. It has caused me to look back at the entirety of my life and think, do you know what I say? And I know that I use this as, I won't say all of it because it's something that I want you're going to say at the end. But it's like somebody has suddenly switched on the lights. Mm. Everything's been dark. I've known kind of what's going on, but suddenly I know that, oh, I'm in this situation. Oh, look at all of that around me. Ooh. And it's getting used to it. I'm still not used to it. I'm still not anywhere near used to it.
Was it July this year? This year? So I feel like from when you get diagnosed, from my experience and from what I hear, I mean, mine's only been a year. Mine's been a year next week. I can't believe that. And you start to it's like a jigsaw, isn't it? Like, or whatever metaphor you use, I use jigsaw. And it's like, something happens in your daily life and you're like, oh, that makes sense, that links.
My mum and dad have gone, like, they're so annoyed with me, like, you put everything now down to ADHD. I'm like, Mum, I've got to, because it's my brain.
It's true, yeah.
The whole of my life, I've just getting, the thing that I'm getting used to, I can understand I have this, blah, blah, blah. The thing I'm getting used to is the fact that now every decision I make, I'm now analysing, and I kind of want to get out of this. I've never been this bad. It's almost like I've got an obsessive compulsive disorder with it, because every decision I make, I'm like, is it ADHD doing this? I'm like, well, it's going to have to be ADHD doing it because it rules my brain. I want to stop. I'm trying to get out of it because it's not, I don't think it's healthy long term. I think it's natural for when you're diagnosed. I know a lot of my friends who've recently been diagnosed do the same. I have set up an Instagram. That is my baby at the moment.
Okay.
My Instagram.
Is that for ADHD or for Bedford?
It's for ADHD. I mean, you'd never guess, would you? I have become absolutely obsessed. I'll be absolutely honest. I'm hyper-focused in on ADHD. I think when you get diagnosed with ADHD, the hyper-focus becomes ADHD.
Yeah, literally. I think that is people that what I find is people that go to the doctor themselves are hyper-focused. The people that the doctor tells them without them going is a little bit different. But I feel like once you find out, it's like, well, there's no point waiting around. We can't wait. We just need to find out everything.
Yeah, I had to find out. I booked it there and then. I'm like, I've got to find out. I need to know what's wrong with me. But now I don't see it. My whole aim now is to spread positivity.
Good.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm doing relatively well. I make money. I've got a job. I've got a job I love. It's not just a job, it's a job I love. I've got a job where I don't have to focus for very long because I'm working with children. Most of the children I work with have got some form of learning needs. I've got a lot of ADHDers who I bounce off like nobody's business. I want to set up an ADHD coaching business in the next 6 months. That is my aim. Once I've done a mindfulness course and get a qualification, I want to set up as an ADHD coach. I'm currently coaching some people voluntarily to get some practice. But I've been told by a number of people with ADHD that I should coach because I've got my life relatively in order. If you see me in my own personal time, you wouldn't say that. But I think I can help people. I have an innate ability to know how people with ADHD feel. And I've always felt that. I mean, every child I've ever taken on with ADHD, I've always got on really well with. And I never knew why. And I always disputed it. I still feel like an imposter. I feel an imposter with neurotypicals, and I feel like an imposter with ADHDers, because I feel like I'm not neurotypical enough to be with neurotypicals, and yet I'm not bad enough with ADHD because my life's relatively ordered. It's not as ordered as people think.
Yeah, but I feel like for me, I think it depends who you are and depends what experiences you've had. And you don't have to be perfect. I was saying 80% managed, 20% just a mess. So
precisely.
But I understand what you mean by that. Like sometimes you meet, but then that's what makes you a good coach, because you have things in place that help you.
And and being having imposter syndrome is ADHD. I mean,
yes,
it's I think it's the hardest thing for me at the moment is just getting used to having it, because I've lived the whole of my life thinking that I'm neurotypical and thinking that I'm really bad at being neurotypical. Always knowing there's something, but never being able, no one ever sort of, apart from my mum, who predicted from a young age. My mum said she's always thought I've got it, but because I was coping, didn't feel the need to do anything about it. And was I coping though? That's the thing. For someone who's screaming and kicking their legs, being dragged physically into school, is that coping?
I think that in the way my mindset is now, that's what I did when I was first out. I was like, oh, I wasn't code this, that, this, and you piece together. But now I just think, well, if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't be who I am today.
Precisely. And I can support children who have the same issues. And most of the children who are anxious when they come to me, I say to the parents after the first 3 or 4 lessons, is there ADHD in your family? Because I think that's that's what's causing the anxiety. Because I've looked at the figures, and I think it's about 5 to 10% of the general population get anxiety.
Yes.
2% get phobias. But among ADHDers, you're looking at up to 50% of ADHD women have anxiety or depression. I've never had depression. I've had seasonal depression, which is it can be cured with vitamin D and sunlight. But I've got a friend who's got depression or is on antidepressants. I'm not going to say who. And I know that I haven't had depression. I've had periods of feeling down, but I've never had actual depression. I've always suffered with anxiety. I think I suffered with it as a small child, but no one would have ever known, because the hyperactivity, impulsivity, and what people think is ADHD. People say I'm textbook what they associate with ADHD. I think I'm the annoying one that actually makes people think everyone with ADHD is hyperactive. I'm not as hyperactive as people think, though. The reason I move around so much, more than anything, is because I just enjoy my body moving. I don't have to move. I've got a wobble stool. I don't have to move backwards and forwards to keep myself happy. I do that because I like the movement rather than I need to do it. But I have to have something in my hand. If I haven't got something in my hand, I can't focus at all.
I think that you kind of, when you kind of find out, you embrace it. Everybody,
definitely.
Obviously, it's speaking from past experience. So before, I would stop myself and sit with my hands like this, and then my knee would shake, and then you get really anxious. And now I just enjoy having stuff. I'm the same. Enjoy moving.
I'm the same. And I think in school, no one ever told me off for having a pen in my hand. I think a lot of people do. A lot of people. My dad's a fidgeter. He channel hops. He fidgets. He does all the things that someone with coping with hyperactivity is doing all the time. And I cope with it. I'm not on medication. If I had children or if I had a different job, I know I'd be on medication. Mm-hmm. I'm in a situation where I don't need to be, because I've got my life sorted for you. So I don't really have to focus. Okay. And when I do have to focus, it's on things that I love. It's the things that I would naturally hyper-focus on anyway. I do struggle a lot with hyper-focus, though. I do really struggle. If people try and get me out of hyper-focus, I'm not a very nice person.
Yeah, but we're all good. I think we're always going to have those things that it doesn't matter how managed your life is or what you medication or what things you do, you're still going to have those because it's your brain wiring.
It is, and I think that's the hardest thing to get used to is the fact that my brain is actually wired differently from neurotypicals, and I think I'm still not used to that. And I don't know how long it will take, whether I'll ever get used to it. It doesn't bother me. It's not something I'm laying awake at night crying over, or even something that worries me. Even it doesn't worry me at all. It's just getting used to it.
And
It's
it will
just
take time.
it's acceptance of kind of, but belonging to the groups. I mean, I've never had friends like I do now. And I think if you want to know if you've got ADHD or not, the best thing to do is hang around with people with ADHD.
Yeah, it really is.
Because we really get along with one another and we don't annoy one another. I annoy everyone. I'm not in a relationship because I'm so bad at annoying other people that I've lived. But I say I've never lived with anyone, but I've semi-lived with a guy, and it didn't last long because of the ADHD. And I'm not saying my whole life is ADHD, because it's not. I'm much more than just that. Much more.
Yeah.
But that's the reason my relationships end. And I tell people now when I date, I tell people, I say, look, I've got ADHD. If you look it up, if you don't think you can cope with it, please don't date me, because I can't get rid of it. I can't just swallow something and it's gone.
I think that's amazing. That's how I met my partner, but I didn't know I had ADHD. I just said, look, I'm really difficult. If you can't handle me, then you need to go now. And
that's what I say to people now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing to do. Some people may disagree, but because then you're not going to get hurt later on. You're not going to have to pretend to be somebody else. You're just laying it out, and then if they go, and you've not got that attachment.
Precisely. And the one thing I've done since the diagnosis is I've been confident enough to completely remove the mask and be totally authentic to everyone I meet.
Amazing.
Customers included. And I tell customers now on the induction, I say, I've got ADHD. I'm going to make timetable errors. I'm going to get your times wrong. I'm going to text you the wrong things. But I am a really blimmin' good tutor because I care about your kids. I know what I'm doing when I'm teaching because I get really in the zone, and there is no one on earth who loves their job as more than I do, and I do care, but I am going to make stupid mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
I make a lot more than the average person. That's just
we're
me.
Human.
When I'm,
yeah.
We're human. At the end of the day, we're still human, and we still deserve respect. And I think that's the one thing I'd say to anyone listening to this, because there's going to be all different people listen to this. And the one thing I'll say is I genuinely, hand on heart, believe ADHD is supposed to be in the population. I think we're needed. Our way of thinking is needed. It's something that there's a prevalence of around 4 to 5% of ADHD in the population. That is not an accident.
No, and I think that there's more. I just think that the world doesn't know it yet.
I think there's possibly up to 8 to 10% of people have ADHD, not necessarily diagnosable, but if the diagnosing materials change to include emotional problems,
then we're getting in there. Yeah,
we're probably going to get up to 7-8% of people get a diagnosis, because I'm sure there's more. The more people I meet in the world, the more I think. I think you might be sitting on the cusp of ADHD, but the first thing I want is just to get it renamed. I just don't like the term ADHD. It's not a disorder and it's not a deficit. It's definitely not a deficit. None of us have got a deficit of anything.
We just have a lot of challenges, but also a lot of strength.
We do. We're all awesome. That's the one thing I will say.
So, you never know, VAST. If anyone doesn't know what that is, we said that earlier. That's variable
attention stimulus
traits. Yeah, I'm so bad with names like that. So
I usually am, but I've actually been using it a lot in my promotional stuff, so I know what that one is.
Right. Well, all I can say, Annabel, is I feel very honoured not only to know you. So Annabel is part of Indigo as well. Seems to be a running trade on here. So I'm very honoured to not only know you, but to invite you on here. And thank you. And just amazing. Like I always say this, but I don't give compliments out lightly. just because I think that when you say it, you should really mean it. And I've always thought that. So I just want to say, truly, you are very inspiring, and not only to adults with ADHD, but to children. And the fact that you've thrown your life into this, into this career and into this business and into this world is just incredible. And the fact that, you have the hard days, you can admit that, but you have the good days and you can also admit that. And the masks come off, and I absolutely am honored to know you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to leave us with today?
In typical ADHD manner, I haven't actually got this up on the screen, so I'm going to do it off the cuff because I'd forgotten about it. But then I suppose everyone expects this, don't they, really?
Yeah,
at least we've got to end with a laugh with me. So what I was going to say is, for me, before the diagnosis, it felt as though I was watching a film in a cinema. And it was a film in another language that I didn't understand whatsoever. A language I'd never studied at school. And I was watching this film, great film, really enjoying it. Lots of different activities going on, lots of different events, but I don't understand what they're saying. And then suddenly someone switches on the subtitles and I know exactly what's going on in the film. I can read it, I can understand, I can get all the different nuances from the film. And that is what a diagnosis of ADHD is like. You live your life without a diagnosis and you enjoy things, you know a lot about what's going on, like you would even in a foreign language watching something, but you don't have all the answers to why you are as you are. When you get a diagnosis, it really is like getting a key to unlock a door. It's like the subtitles coming on. I mean, it's like the lights going on. I mean, how many more different analogies can I give? But that is what it feels like. If people are unsure whether to get a diagnosis because of being labelled, I'd say go for it, because it isn't a label, it's an understanding. And it gives you the reason. You can say to people, look, this isn't an excuse, it's an explanation. I am always trying my best. I mean, this morning I've already made so many timetable errors, but I've been trying my best the whole morning. The reason I've made them is because my brain does not function in that way, and I'm struggling to get through it. But I always try my best.
And wow, I love that thing. Sorry, I have to add in here before we leave about the label thing. That's something that I really try and push over here in Asia. Wow. So it's not an excuse, it's an explanation.
Definitely.
Thanks, Annabel. And thanks, Indigos. As every week, thanks for joining us, and goodbye. Thank you, Annabel.
Thank you.
So we shall signing out, Indigos. See you soon. Have an amazing week. And all I'm going to say from this one is remember, ADHD is a part of you, but it's not all of you. And we're out.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Today is ending. I'll check in again tomorrow.
Tomorrow is a brand new beginning.
Good night, sweet dreams.
I think tomorrow will be...
Shh.